Okay. Where and when did you get married?
August 3rd, 1957. Wait, yeah. I had to think when Jimmy and Debbie were born. That's why, yeah, August 3rd, 1957, at um,
City
the
Hall?
court, yes, City Hall at the courthouse downtown.
What were you doing for work then? You said you were working at Woolworths still?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
Um, was your family there when you got married?
Just my dad. My mom didn't come, and my husband, aunt, and uncle were witnesses, and my husband, Aunt Emma, I loved her like she was my sister. She was like when I met my husband's family, those two were so good to me because I was the first one breaking into like a Hispanic family back then, and they used to call me a weta, white girl, and a lot of his cousins and that they didn't like me because he was marrying a white girl and he was Hispanic, and they probably wanted to and all of them ended up later on marrying out of their race. That is, yeah.
So that what was his family like? They eventually all loved you?
Not all of them, no. I mean, my mother-in-law in the beginning, she was good to me, and my sister-in-law Dora, and my my husband, aunt, and uncle Emma, and we became really good friends.
Where did you live after you got married?
Our first apartment, that was a no-no. Lived with my mom and dad for a little bit until, okay, I lived with my parents and in their house, and they still, would boss me around, and my husband didn't like it, and he got into it, the Mexican temper. He got into it, and he got into it with my dad, and we moved, moved into my first apartment.
I forgot to ask, what was your husband's name?
James.
James Ortega?
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
James Iasias Ortega.
oh. So then they got into it, you said. Your parents and your new husband.
My dad and him.
So then when did you move out?
Well, pretty close. I mean, found I felt bad, I felt bad, but what are you gonna do, You just get married, and
Where was your first house?
it was on the same block really, but it was a rear apartment on I think that street was Morgan and 34th.
Okay. Um, when did you have your first child?
1959, my son Jimmy.
How old were you?
19.
And
He was 21 because we're 2 years apart.
were you still living on Morgan Street?
No, when I had my first child, I lived on Troop Street.
House or
I,
apartment?
it was an apartment. It was the third floor, I think. Yeah, third floor, and it was all the way through an apartment. Had a big picture window.
What did you do for work before you had him?
Before I had
And then before and after you had your son?
Well, I'm trying to think when I quit my job. I can't remember all that.
Were you working at Woolworths that whole time?
No, remember at Woolworths, remember I got a job at Jewel Tea
Oh,
Company?
I'm sorry. Were you working at Jewel Tea after that the whole time?
I was there for a while, and then I left I left Jewel, and then I don't think I worked for a while. I think, I was home.
Did you stay home while all your kids were growing up?
No, I worked off and on.
How old were you when you had your second child?
A year apart, too close. Debbie, 1960, had her at home.
Oh, wow. What was that like?
It was the best birth ever and cheapest. She was only like 20 something cents or 30 something for vitamin pills or something, prenatal.
Where did you give birth to Jim?
Jim?
Yeah, to your son.
Um,
The hospital?
Mother Cabrini Hospital.
Oh, okay. What about your third child? How old?
Well, what about Debbie? I had her at home.
You just told me that.
Okay.
And then what about your third child?
Crystal, I had her at Mother Cabrini.
And then your fourth and fifth.
The twins.
Yes.
Mother Cabrini.
So you had all your kids at the same hospital?
Yeah, it was a Catholic hospital.
Why did you have Aunt Debbie at home?
Because I got pregnant real quick. You know, I had Jimmy. I was only 3 months and I was pregnant again. And he didn't have a real good job. And, you know, to have, you know, insurance, you know, and all that. Didn't have that. So we used to just pay the, oh no. No. With Jimmy, even, you paid, you know, ahead of time. You know, you paid the doctor as you go. But with Debbie, there was a Chicago Maternity Center, which they went out of business, where they were for, like, poor people, I think, and you could have your baby at home. And when it was time, and I went there, I didn't see a doctor till I was 8 months with Debbie.
Oh my gosh. Nowadays you see them so much. I forgot to ask, how old were you when you had Aunt Crystal, and how old were you when you had the twins? Or what year was it?
Years are better. How old? What year first?
For Crystal and then the twins.
1964, Crystal. Mm-hmm. Oh, because after I had Debbie, the nurse, you know, would come and bathe Debbie for the first 2 weeks. It was very good, the Chicago Maternity Center. A nurse, when I was sick at the hospital, I told her about Chicago Maternity Center, and she remembered them. And but when I had Debbie at home, the nurse told me that I should watch myself. I shouldn't get pregnant, right? You know, because wasn't even really well, and I was pregnant again. So I waited 4 years. I had Crystal, 1964. I had the twins, 1968. Another 4 years.
What was giving birth like at the hospital? What was it like back then? Did you get pain meds or?
At the Catholic hospital, you didn't get nothing. That's what they believed in.
I know back then sometimes they'd put people to sleep. Did you go through that at all? Oh no. Was any family there when you were giving birth? For any of them?
No, they didn't have family back then. And when I had my twins, I wasn't getting along with my husband. Even when he just, you know what he did? I was getting real bad pains in the morning. My husband too, he fooled around a lot. When I was having pains, and I told him I think I gotta go to hospital, and he told me to wait a bit. He got ready to go to work. He was getting ready because he figured he'll drop me off at the hospital and go to work, and that's what he did. And I had my twins without him.
You didn't know you were having twins. Well, you knew, but they said you weren't, right?
Yeah.
What happened with that doctor? What did they say?
Well, the first one came out, which was Becky. And then I remember the nurse saying, "Hey, doctor," and she going around, and it felt, she's going around in my stomach. I think there's another one in here.
Well, you had told the doctor, though, right?
I told him I thought I was Dr. Cherone, his name was. He was Italian. And, I cut my ties with him, too, because, one time when I went to visit him, I was laying in bed at night, and I felt like I felt two different movements. And after having 3 kids, you kind of, I don't know, And he laughed at me, and he says, "No, well, they didn't do ultrasound back then." He said, "No, you're only having one." And he thinks it's a girl because the heartbeat is faster than a boy's, And then after I had my twins, I had a roommate, and he came in and he told me, that's when I felt nothing for him at all after. He says, "I think you ought to give me a little bit more money for delivering an extra baby." And I said, okay, but I never gave him a dime.
That's terrible. What was raising your kids like? You said you worked off and on?
Off and on.
Where did you work while they were?
I'm trying to think. Because one time when my sister lived here, my sister Sue, I used to push him in the snow in a buggy, and I worked somewhere. I can't remember.
Was your husband very involved in the child care?
Men back then, no.
They didn't do anything, right? Who was the troublemaker of your kids? None of them?
Well, when Jimmy got older, he got into a drinking problem.
Oh.
You know.
But growing as kids, they were all good?
Yeah.
That's nice. Where did you live when your kids were grown? After they were out of the house, where did you live?
Well, Mona was the last to leave. I lived around this area in Chicago.
Where you live now?
No, not where I live. I forget this. What was that? Was it? No, it wasn't Austin. Wait. Was it Austin? No, I can't think of this street. It was around in Clearing. That's the neighborhood. Like neighborhoods Clearing around where I am now. It's called Clearing.
And what would you do for work back then?
Well, I did work for a long time at Carson Peary Scott for 9 years, and then they were moving out of Chicago. The department stores, and then I just had Kelly temp jobs. Because it was hard to find a job because I was already, I don't know if I was in my upper 50s when that was. Yeah, I had to be, when I lost my job, and it was hard finding a job, and I went to a Kelly temp service.
Okay, now I'm going to ask, where were you when Kennedy was assassinated?
I worked at Sears mailing department. It was with my husband's Aunt Emma, who I love. She passed. We worked in the mailing department. No, mailing department? Yeah, something like that. And we were up on the 8th floor. It was like a floor for employees where they had stuff, you could buy cheap, for Sears employees. And it came over the radio that Kennedy was assassinated.
Wow. How was it for you during the 60s, during like the civil rights times? Did you notice anything, or was it
You know what? I didn't know a whole lot. I was too busy raising kids.
Yeah.
Even someone will ask me about a song or something, and I'll say, I don't remember that. I don't know. You're not listening to like music, or you're raising kids.
5 kids, yeah. Anything you would change about your life?
Yeah, I wouldn't married as young as I did.
Okay.
I mean, I love my kids, but I should have been smarter, because I did love my husband, but he wasn't the settle down type. And I had a crush on this kid. I used to live next door to Carl Morelli, and his mother was a very nice lady too. And when I was going with my husband, he was Italian, and he come knocking at my door. My husband was there too, though, because he used to come after school by my house. And Carl Morelli knocked on my door, and he asked me to go to the snowball dance with him. And my husband's in the next room. You know what I did to the poor? I used to like him. We used to hang around before I met my husband. I slammed the door in his face. I didn't even answer him. Aww. I often wondered what would my life been like if I didn't marry my husband and married him.
Aww.
Because he he was a decent guy, and his mom raised him right.
That's nice, though. Do you have any advice for your grandkids or great grandkids?
Great grandkids.
Or grandkids?
I don't know. Pursue your dreams. It's kind of a hard one. Listen to your parents.
That's a good one.
You know, and everybody's kind of in church. You know.
Well,
I know.
any of
I
your
know.
great
I
grandkids,
know
any of your kids.
different. I know kids have gone into different religions. If they, you know, you gotta respect it. I mean, I don't know. I'm Catholic, and Becky and Mona became Baptists, you know.
Is there anything you'd want your grandkids or great grandkids to know? Anything that we didn't cover? Anything about your life or anything that we didn't talk about that you would want to make sure they knew?
No, I can't right now. I don't know. Can I get back to you sometime and say, oh, Christine, I want to put this in?
Yes. Well, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.